If you could be granted one wish, just one magnificent world-altering wish, whispered into the ear of the universe itself, what would it be? For some, perhaps, it is a material desire, wealth beyond measure, a power that could command the tides of nations. But for most of us, when we are alone with our deepest, most honest thoughts, the wish is something far more fundamental, something quieter, older, and infinitely more profound. It is the wish for more time, the wish to not see the final page of your story, the wish for an epilogue that never, ever ends. It is the dream of immortality, a dream woven so deeply into the fabric of our consciousness that we barely notice it's there. This is perhaps the oldest story we have ever told ourselves. It is the invisible ink that writes itself between the lines of our greatest myths, our most sacred texts, and our most ambitious technologies. The Egyptians built pyramids as grand engines of eternity, tombs designed not as final resting places, but as gateways. They saw death not as a conclusion, but as a doorway to be unlocked. The Norse warriors, in the freezing cold of their world, dreamt of Valhalla, not a place of peaceful rest, but an endless hall of glorious, riotous continuation, feasting and fighting forever. The Greeks, in the warmth of their sunlit philosophy, whispered of the Elysian fields, a paradise where the virtuous could wander in a perpetual, gentle spring. Our great religions codify this dream, each in their own language. They offered a heaven, a paradise, a jhana, a nirvana. Each is a promise, a spiritual contract, assuring us that the staggering beauty and the crushing weight of this consciousness does not simply turn off. A promise that the love we feel, the intricate connections we forge, are not just fleeting electrochemical signals in a temporary biological vessel, but something eternal, something that will echo long after the vessel has returned to dust. And this ancient dream is more alive today than ever. We've simply changed the language from the mythological to the technological. Today, the Silicon Valley pharaohs pursue their own pyramids. They invest billions into cryogenics, hoping to freeze the body until the problem of death can be solved. They fund research into mind uploading, dreaming of a day when our consciousness can be transferred to an indestructible digital substrate, living forever in a server, a ghost in the machine. It is the same ancient wish, just dressed in the robes of science. Even our modern myths, our cinematic gods, are obsessed with this dream. We are fascinated by the vampire, the tragic figure cursed with eternal life, yet alluring in their complete defiance of decay. We create superheroes who are functionally immortal, watching with weary eyes as human civilizations rise and fall. Their powers a shield against the one enemy no mortal can defeat, the simple, relentless, indifferent passage of time. This desire, this deep cellular yearning for more, is not born of simple greed. It is born of love. It is born of terror. We love this fragile, chaotic, beautiful experience of being. We love the taste of fresh water on a hot day, the impossible architecture of a snowflake, the sound of a loved one's laughter echoing in a quiet room, the quiet, humbling awe of looking up at a night sky and feeling impossibly small, and the thought of it all being extinguished, the thought of the universe continuing on with its silent cosmic dance, utterly indifferent to our personal absence, is a cold, primal fear. It's the fear of being forgotten by everyone, including ourselves. It is the fear of nothingness. And so we build our entire psychological and spiritual worlds upon the foundation of this single, desperate hope that there is a way out, a loophole, an escape clause in the contract of existence. But what if this beautiful, ancient, and deeply human dream is not a hope, but a meticulously crafted psychological trap? What if the very thing we desire most, the cornerstone of our spiritual comfort and our greatest religions, is actually the most sophisticated, most complete form of hell ever conceived? What if the greatest philosophers and psychologists understood a terrible secret that we have since forgotten? That the true, unbearable terror is not found in the final breath, but in the horrifying idea of being unable to ever take it. What we are about to explore is not just a philosophical curiosity. It is a thought experiment so powerful, it has been called the ultimate psychological diagnostic tool, a question so sharp it can reveal the true health of your soul and your relationship with the one and only life you are actually living. We are going to deconstruct humanity's oldest, most cherished wish. And in its place, in the rubble of that comforting dream, we will find philosophy's most terrifying question. This terrifying question did not come from a modern psychologist nor a religious prophet. It came from a man who stared so deeply into the abyss of human existence that many feared he had lost himself in it. The 19th century German philosopher, Friedrich Nietzsche. He wasn't interested in comforting lies or easy answers. He was a philosopher of courage who believed that we must face the harshest truths of our existence head-on without flinching. And in his book, The Gay Science, he presents us with what he called Das größte Gewicht, the greatest weight, the ultimate stress test for the human soul. He asks you to imagine this scene. Imagine it is late. The world outside is silent, asleep. You are utterly alone in that specific kind of stillness that only arrives in the deepest hours of the night. You are in your loneliest loneliness. The air in the room is heavy. The dust motes hang suspended in the single beam of moonlight that cuts through the darkness. And into this profound solitude, something else enters. You don't see it at first, but you feel it. A change in the pressure of the air, a shadow that moves against the logic of the light. A demon, he says, has stolen after you. It doesn't announce itself with thunder or fire. It moves with a quiet, spider-like deliberation. It approaches you, and you feel a coldness that has nothing to do with the temperature of the room. It leans in close, so close you can feel the absence of its breath, and it speaks. Its voice is not a roar, but a dry, sibilant whisper, as if spoken through ages of dust. And this is the secret it shares with you. This is the proposition. This life, as you now live it and have lived it, you will have to live once more, and then again, innumerable times more. And in this eternal repetition, the demon clarifies, there will be nothing new. Every single pain and every single joy, every thought you have ever had and every sigh that has ever escaped your lips, everything unutterably small or unimaginably great in your life must return to you, all in the very same succession, the same unalterable sequence. The demon paints the picture with excruciating detail, leaving no room for escape. Even this spider crawling across the wall in the moonlight, and this moonlight itself filtering through the trees, and this very moment of my whispering to you, and I myself. The eternal hourglass of existence is turned upside down again and again and again, and you with it, a tiny, insignificant speck of dust, are turned upside down with it, forever. Nietzsche then poses the question, what would be your immediate, honest, gut-level reaction? Would you throw yourself down, gnash your teeth, and curse the demon that spoke thus? Or have you ever experienced a tremendous moment when you would have answered him, "You are a god and never have I heard anything more divine"? Before we continue, I want you to truly sit with that question. What was your immediate, honest, gut-level reaction to the demon's proposition? Terror or something else? Let me know in the comments below. There is no right answer, only your truth. This is the test, and we must be honest with ourselves. For the vast majority of us, the first reaction is not one of divine joy. It is one of pure, unadulterated horror. It is the feeling of being crushed. The idea itself feels like a physical weight, a granite slab pressing down on your chest, stealing the air from your lungs. This is the greatest weight. And the source of this terror at first glance seems obvious. It's the thought of reliving our most significant traumas, the devastating loss of a loved one, the sharp, searing pain of betrayal, the hollow ache of a broken heart, the public humiliation that still burns your cheeks when you remember it. To be condemned to re-experiencing those moments, to feel that pain fresh each time for all of eternity, that alone is a vision of hell. But that is only the first layer of this philosophical onion. It is the most obvious part of the horror. The true, insidious and soul-crushing weight of the eternal recurrence lies somewhere else entirely. It's found not in the grand tragedies, but in the crushing infinity of the mundane and the perfect, inescapable prison of our own regrets. First, let us consider the mundane. Think of your life. Not the highlight reel, not the dramatic turning points. Think of the substance that fills the vast spaces between those moments. Think of the eternal return of every single, solitary, mind-numbing Tuesday afternoon. Imagine the shrill, violent sound of your alarm clock on a Monday morning. Not once, not 1,000 times, but for all of eternity. That specific feeling of dread, the weight of the coming week, repeated infinitely. The taste of that slightly burnt, mediocre coffee you drink every morning. The slow, agonizing crawl of the commute. The same red lights, the same sea of brake lights. The eternal repetition of every pointless meeting, every forced small talk with a coworker, every moment spent mindlessly scrolling through your phone, searching for a distraction that never quite satisfies. The feeling of being slightly too cold in an over-air-conditioned office. The low-grade headache that lasts for hours. The disappointing meal you paid too much for. All of it. Every single granular detail of life's friction, its dullness, its quiet disappointments. These are the bricks that build the walls of this eternal prison. It is not a hell of fire and brimstone. It is a hell of grey, bureaucratic, infinite repetition. A cosmic office job from which you can never, ever clock out. But even the horror of infinite banality pales in comparison to the second, deeper terror. The perfect prison, the horror of amplified regret. To truly understand this prison, we must understand that regret has two faces. One is a spear, the other is a ghost. Both haunt us, but in very different ways. The first is the spear, the regret of action. This is a sharp, piercing, active pain. It is the memory that attacks you. Think of the cruelest thing you have ever said to someone you loved. The word that left your lips before you could stop it. The one that you saw land with the force of a physical blow. The moment you betrayed a trust or acted out of pure ego. That cringing, shameful memory that your mind tries to bury, that makes your stomach turn even decades later. In the eternal loop, you don't just remember it. You are eternally the person saying it. The memory loses its past tense. It becomes a permanent, repeating present. You are trapped forever in the worst version of yourself, with no hope of apology, forgiveness, or redemption, because the script is locked. And as horrifying as that is, there is the second face of regret, which is for many even worse. The ghost, the regret of inaction, the terror of lost potential. This is not a sharp spear, but a cold, hollow ache. It is not an attack, but a constant, draining presence. It is the ghost of the life unlived that follows you, a silent shadow of all the things you failed to be. It is the love you never had the courage to confess, now an eternal silence. It is the creative project, the book, the painting, the music, that you were too scared or too lazy to start, now an eternally blank canvas. It is the apology you never gave, the trip you never took, the moment you saw injustice and stayed silent. The eternal recurrence forces you to watch, on a loop, the ghost of the person you could have become. It is an eternity of watching a door of opportunity appear before you and forever lacking the courage to walk through it. This multi-layered terror, the crushing weight of the mundane, the sharp prison of the spear, and the ghostly haunting of lost potential all point to one devastating psychological conclusion. The eternal recurrence is terrifying because it methodically, surgically annihilates the single mechanism that makes all of this suffering bearable: hope. Hope is, by its very nature, future-oriented. It is the belief in a tomorrow that can be different from today. It is the engine of change. We tell ourselves, I will learn from my mistakes. Tomorrow, I will be braver. Next time, I will do better. The eternal recurrence destroys next time. It erases the future. There is only this time, repeated with perfect, mechanical, unforgiving fidelity. There is no possibility of growth, no chance of redemption, no hope of change. It is a closed loop and you are trapped inside. This, then, is not just a philosophical puzzle. It is a vision of absolute psychological despair. It is an X-ray of the soul. And now that we have seen the fractures in such excruciating detail, we can finally begin to ask the real question Nietzsche wanted us to ask. What is the underlying disease that makes this diagnosis so terrifying? So what is this underlying disease? What is the source of this profound sickness in the soul that makes the idea of repeating our own life the ultimate form of torture? Nietzsche has a diagnosis. He argues that the horror we feel is a symptom of a deep-seated philosophical poison he called ressentiment. It's a French word, and it means more than just simple resentment or bitterness. Ressentiment is the defining characteristic of a weak and reactive spirit. It is the psychology of the person who, unable to exert their own will upon the world to get what they want, creates a new moral system where their powerlessness becomes a virtue. They cannot conquer their enemies, so they reframe their enemy's strength as evil and their own weakness as goodness. Humility, patience, forgiveness, these for Nietzsche were often not true virtues, but the clever inventions of those too weak to take revenge. Out of this state of ressentiment, a new kind of human emerged, the Hinterwäldler, a German term that means the afterworld's men or the otherworlders. These are the philosophers, priests, and prophets who, filled with a deep hatred for this world, the only world that exists with all its chaos, suffering, and injustice, invented a true world beyond our own. Plato invented his world of perfect, eternal forms. Religions painted their pictures of a perfect, eternal heaven. These other worlds were designed to be stable, just, and meaningful, in stark contrast to the messy, painful reality of earthly existence. This invention, Nietzsche claimed, was the single greatest act of slander against life ever committed. It was a declaration that our real life is flawed, secondary, merely a test or a shadow. It poisoned our relationship with reality by teaching us to devalue the present in favor of a fictional future. And so, your horror at the demon's proposition is the ultimate litmus test. It is a direct measure of how deeply you have been infected by this otherworldly thinking. Your terror is your soul admitting that you have rejected your own existence, that you have secretly been wishing for another life all along. But Nietzsche was not the only thinker to stare into the abyss of an eternal, meaningless loop. Nearly half a century later, the French-Algerian philosopher Albert Camus would confront a similar vision of hell and find a different path forward. Camus asks us to consider the ancient Greek myth of Sisyphus. Sisyphus was a king who, through his cleverness, managed to cheat death twice. For his hubris, for his arrogant defiance of the gods, he was given a punishment of exquisite, absurd cruelty. He was condemned for all of eternity to push a massive boulder up a steep hill in the underworld. Just as he reaches the summit, the very moment before he can feel a sliver of accomplishment, the boulder's own weight sends it rolling back down to the bottom, and Sisyphus must descend, walk past his rock, and begin the agonizing, pointless struggle all over again, forever. The parallel to Nietzsche's Eternal Recurrence is chilling and unmistakable. Sisyphus is the living embodiment of the horror we've just described. His existence is an infinite loop of meaningless, repetitive, strenuous effort with no hope of progress or change. We should, by all accounts, view Sisyphus as the most tragic figure imaginable. But here Camus makes a radical turn. In his famous essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, he concludes with one of the most powerful lines in all of philosophy. After watching Sisyphus descend the hill to begin again, his face etched with strain, Camus declares, "The struggle itself toward the heights is enough to fill a man's heart. One must imagine Sisyphus happy." Happy? How could he possibly be happy? Camus' happiness is not joy or bliss. It is the happiness of rebellion. Sisyphus is happy because he is fully conscious of the complete absurdity and hopelessness of his condition, and yet he does not despair. In the moment he walks down the hill, he is not a prisoner. He is superior to his fate because he is aware of it. By scornfully accepting his rock as his own, by choosing to find his life in that struggle without hope, he robs the gods of their victory. His consciousness of his own tragedy is his triumph. It is a grim, defiant, but noble happiness. This is a powerful and heroic solution, to find meaning in rebellion, to be happy out of spite and conscious scorn. But for Nietzsche, this was still not enough. To simply endure the eternal loop even in a state of rebellion was still a form of saying no. It was still admitting the rock was a punishment. Nietzsche demanded something far more radical, something almost inhuman. He did not want you to just endure your fate. He did not want you to rebel against it. He demanded that you love it, that you see the eternal rolling of your own specific boulder not as a curse to be endured, but as a divine dance you would choose freely, joyfully, for all of eternity. We are going deep into some heavy territory here, and if you appreciate this kind of philosophical and psychological exploration, the best way to support this channel is to like this video and subscribe. It tells the algorithm that these deeper conversations are needed and ensures you won't miss what's coming next. But how? How is it even possible to not just accept, but to fall in love with our own suffering? How do we get from Sisyphus's defiant happiness to a divine joy? This requires a final transformative step, the forging of a new kind of soul, the ultimate answer to the demon's curse and the cure for the great sickness of ressentiment. He called it Amor Fati, a Latin phrase that translates simply to a love of one's fate. But do not be fooled by its simplicity. This is perhaps the most difficult and courageous concept in all of Western philosophy. It is not the weak, passive resignation of everything happens for a reason. It is not a comforting platitude meant to soothe the pain of loss. Amor Fati is an active, fiery, passionate embrace of everything that has ever happened to you and everything that ever will. It is the desire for nothing to be different, not in the past, not in the future, not for all of eternity. It is to look upon the entire tapestry of your life, with its threads of blinding joy woven inextricably with threads of crushing sorrow, its moments of soaring triumph and its moments of deep, burning shame, and to not merely accept the whole cloth, but to love it, to affirm it, to declare it not just good but necessary, perfect in its totality, because every single thread was required to create the person you are right now. As Nietzsche himself wrote in his most personal book, Ecce Homo, "My formula for greatness in a human being is Amor Fati, that one wants nothing to be different, not forward, not backward, not in all eternity, not merely bear what is necessary, but love it." This is the ultimate answer to the demon. The person who has forged a soul capable of Amor Fati would not gnash their teeth. They would look at the demon, this specter of eternal repetition, and see not a tormentor, but a herald. They would see the proposition not as a curse, but as a divine confirmation of a life so well loved, so completely affirmed, that the chance to experience it again would be the greatest possible gift. But how does one get there? This sounds like a superpower, a mindset reserved for saints and madmen. This is where we move from pure philosophy to applied psychology. The path to Amor Fati is a forge, and it requires deliberate, practical steps. First, one must adopt the observer's stance. Before you can love your fate, you must first learn to see it clearly, without being immediately swept away by the emotional charge of memory. This is the core of mindfulness practice. When a painful memory or a regret arises, you train yourself to observe it as you would a cloud passing in the sky. You acknowledge its presence, its shape, its darkness, but you do not identify with it. You are the sky, not the cloud. This creates the necessary space for the real work to begin. The second step is the search for the necessary. This is an intellectual and emotional alchemy. You must look at your deepest wounds and ask the terrifyingly honest question, what essential strength, what piece of wisdom, what unbreakable part of me exists only because this happened? This is not about finding a silver lining or saying a traumatic event was good. It is about recognizing that the person who survived, the person who is here today, was forged in that specific fire. The scar tissue is stronger than the original skin. You must trace the lines from the wound to your current strength and see the causal link not as a tragedy, but as a necessity. The final step is the most difficult. It is the act of gratitude as a creative force. After observing the event without judgment, after identifying the strength it necessarily created, you must find it in you to be grateful. Not grateful for the pain itself, but grateful for the growth that the pain made possible. Grateful for the person you were forced to become. This is the ultimate reframing. It is the final alchemical step that turns the lead of suffering into the gold of a self-affirmed life. It is the philosophy of kintsugi, the Japanese art of repairing broken pottery with gold. believing that the object is more beautiful, more valuable, and more unique for having been broken. And this brings us back to the thought experiment. Its true purpose was never to be a literal theory of the cosmos. Its purpose is to be used as a tool, a guiding principle for living. Live your life as if every action you take will be repeated for eternity. How does that change things? Suddenly, every choice is imbued with an eternal significance. You can no longer tolerate the job you hate, the relationship that drains you, or the habits that diminish you because the thought of repeating them forever is simply unbearable. You are forced by the weight of eternity to act with absolute intention. You are compelled to seek out what is authentic, what is meaningful, what is beautiful to you in this moment and in the next. This principle transforms you from a haunted passenger in your own life into its active and loving creator. And in doing so, we arrive at the final, beautiful reversal. We began this journey by deconstructing the comforting dream of immortality. And now, at the end, we redefine it. True immortality is not found in the endless continuation of time. It is not about living for 1,000 years. True immortality is found in the quality of a single moment. It is to live a moment so completely, so authentically, with such a profound of purpose and love that you would will for that single moment to last forever. That is how you become eternal. That is how you conquer death. So I leave you now with the demon's question, not as a curse from a horror story, but as a gift from a philosopher, a tool for your own self-discovery. Ask yourself in your own loneliest loneliness, if you had to live this life again, this one right here, exactly as it is, with every single beautiful and terrible detail, for all of eternity, would you weep in terror or would you cry out in joy? The answer reveals everything. Thank you for joining me on this deep and challenging journey today. If these ideas resonated with you, please show your support by liking, subscribing, and sharing this video with one person who you think needs to hear this message. Until next time, love your fate.